Three young singers who soared to the heights of show business on the current rock and roll craze were killed today in the crash of a light plane in an Iowa snow flurry.
Buddy Holly shined at an early age and was a musical superstar. By the age of 16, this wonder child had achieved more than most musicians could ever have dreamed of. Thanks to the support of his parents, Buddy grew into an influential founder of rock and roll. But in 1959, the world was shocked by a tragic event that no one could have predicted. Buddy Holly was born on September 7, 1936 in Lubbock, Texas. His official name was Charles Hardin Holly, but he was soon nicknamed Buddy by his mother. Buddy had 3 siblings. His older siblings were Larry, Travis, and Patricia Lou. From an early age, he fell in love with the art of music. At first, he tried piano and violin, but later his brothers taught him the beauty of the guitar, which soon became his greatest passion besides singing. A 1949 home recording shows Buddy's skilled singing voice in the song My Two-Timin' Woman. Buddy's parents, Lawrence Holly and Ella Pauline Drake, who were tailors by trade, enthusiastically supported his rising music talents. They helped generate song ideas and even wrote a letter to the editor of the Lubbock newspaper defending teenagers who loved rock and roll and were criticized in a conservative editorial. Buddy's passion grew as he grew older, and when he reached his teenage years, it was clear that he was destined for greatness. When given the choice to pursue music or join his brothers in the tile business, Buddy chose the first option. His heart, mind, and soul were set on music, and nothing could change his mind. Even when a local preacher asked him what he would do if he had $10, he said, "If I had $10, I wouldn't be here." This mix of passion and rebellion continued when Buddy graduated from high school. He soon formed a band that focused on country and western songs. Buddy got in touch with Dave Stone, the manager of radio station KDAV, and the band was soon broadcast on a local radio station. Dave Stone, also known as David Pappy Dave Stone Pinkston, played a crucial role in Buddy's early career. Stone was not only a radio host, but also an influential figure who helped secure the first record contracts for Buddy. Stone's connections and support allowed Buddy to bring his music to a wider audience. They frequently performed as an opening act for better-known national artists who were on tour in Lubbock, Texas. But in 1955, everything would change. In that year, Elvis Presley's popularity grew. The rise of Elvis had a major influence on Buddy's music direction after watching him perform. Buddy, like many other musicians of his time, was influenced by Elvis's revolutionary approach to music, mixing country, rhythm and blues, and rock and roll. Elvis's success and the new sound he brought to the music world inspired Buddy to switch from country music to rock and roll. Bandmate Sonny Curtis remembered the following: "When Elvis came along, Buddy fell in love with Elvis and we began to change. The next day we became Elvis clones." Buddy's quick transition to rock and roll was without a doubt the best move he ever made in his career, because as soon as he started playing rock, labels started recognizing him. In February 1956, Dave Stone sent a demo tape of Buddy to record company Decca Records. This led to the signing of his first record deal. In the contract, Decca Records accidentally misspelled Holly's last name as Holly, and from then on he was known as Buddy Holly, rather than his real name Holley. In early 1956, Buddy and his band recorded demos and singles in Nashville under the name Buddy Holly and the Three Tunes. At a later time, the composition of the group was revised, and they were renamed the Crickets. In the spring of 1957, the Crickets released That'll Be the Day, which became a huge breakthrough hit. The song dominated the charts in the United Kingdom for 3 weeks. The success continued into 1958, with no fewer than 7 of the band's singles reaching the top 40 charts. However, in 1958, Buddy made the important decision to say goodbye to his band life and focus on a solo career. At that time, he asked his girlfriend Maria Elena Santiago to marry him on their very first date. The couple's whirlwind romance led to their marriage just 2 months later. After their marriage, they moved to New York to start a new life together. In 1959, Buddy was asked to tour the Midwest, known as the Winter Dance Party. The decision to go on tour and end his life in New York was not pre-planned, but Buddy agreed to it to address financial problems that had arisen from the breakup of his former band. The tour brought Buddy together with other artists, including Dion and the Belmonts, Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, and Frankie Sardo. For the Winter Dance Party tour, Buddy assembled a band consisting of Waylon Jennings, Tommy Allsup, and Carl Bunch. The Winter Dance Party Tour began in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on January 23, 1959. Unfortunately, the tour experienced logistical problems because of insufficient planning regarding distances between locations. These problems were compounded as the heating in the tour buses failed in the cold winter, which had serious consequences. Buddy's drummer Carl Bunch was hospitalized because of frozen toes during a bus trip. In response, Buddy decided to arrange alternative transportation. On February 2nd, after their performance at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa, Buddy had chartered a flight from Dwyer Flying Service in Mason City, Iowa. The plane was a 4-seat Beechcraft Bonanza reserved for Waylon Jennings, Tommy Allsup, and Buddy Holly himself. Their intention was to fly to their next destination in Moorhead, Minnesota via Fargo, North Dakota, immediately after the performance. This decision was made to avoid the tiring bus trip, wash clothes, and get some rest. Right after the show, just before midnight, Tommy agreed to flip a coin with Ritchie Valens to decide who would get a seat on the plane. Ritchie had won and humorously said, "That's the first time I've ever won anything in my life." While Ritchie was assured a seat, J.P. Richardson, also known as the Big Bopper, expressed his discomfort with the cold and uncomfortable conditions on the tour bus because of his size. Besides, he had caught the flu, so that's why Waylon volunteered his seat to him. This act of kindness by Waylon unknowingly saved him from the tragic fate that awaited this flight. In the early evening, pilot Roger Peterson went to the air traffic communications station to obtain the necessary weather information for the flight later that night. Because of a cold frontal attack, there was a forecast of light snow showers after 2 a.m., but he wasn't worried about this yet. On February 3rd, passengers arrived at the airport around midnight. After their luggage was loaded aboard, pilot Roger Peterson and passengers Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson boarded the plane. Roger was in regular contact with the flight plan and weather with Hubert Dwyer, a licensed commercial pilot and the local operator at Mason City Airport. Everything seemed fine, and takeoff was made at 0:55 a.m. Hubert saw that the plane made a 180-degree left turn, climbed to about 800 feet, and then, after passing the airfield eastward, flew in a northwesterly direction. The plane's taillight was also clearly visible. At 0100, about 5 minutes after takeoff and about 5 miles from the airport, something strange happened. Hubert saw the plane's taillight gradually descend until it disappeared from view. Roger was supposed to share his flight plan shortly after takeoff, but he had not done that. Hubert tried several times to contact him, but unfortunately, without success. The plane had disappeared from radar, and no one knew what had happened. A major search operation was immediately launched. The operators hoped for the best, but they feared the worst. In the morning, unfortunately, their worst fears were confirmed.
Als Buddy Holly, Big Bopper und Ritchie Valens auf dem Weg zu einem Konzert mit dem Flugzeug abstürzen, gerät der Rock'n'Roll in eine echte Krise.
After an extensive search, the wreckage was found in an open field around 9:35 a.m. that morning. All occupants, Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson, and the pilot Roger Peterson lost their lives. Wreckage from the plane was lying everywhere. The field where the plane was found was flat and covered with about 5 inches of snow. Because the accident was in a sparsely inhabited area, there were unfortunately no witnesses. This tragic event became commonly known as the day the music died because of the great impact it had on the music scene. But what exactly happened? Shortly after the accident, the Civil Aeronautics Board launched an investigation. This included taking deposition statements in Mason City, Iowa on February 18, 1959. On September 23, 1959, the investigation was officially released. The investigation revealed that unfavorable weather conditions played a significant role in the crash. As the plane taxied onto the runway, there was a sudden and drastic change in local weather conditions. Compared to reports an hour earlier, the ceiling had dropped by 3,000 feet. Visibility was significantly reduced, and light snow had fallen. Despite these unfavorable weather conditions, the pilot decided to proceed with takeoff, which ultimately turned out to be a mistake. The investigation ultimately determined that the probable cause of the crash was a combination of several factors. The pilot's decision to fly despite poor weather conditions was considered unwise, although not uncommon. There were also contributing factors, including serious deficiencies in weather briefing to the pilot and the pilot's unfamiliarity with the aircraft's specific instruments. The Civil Aeronautics Board concluded that the pilot, Roger Peterson, suffered from disorientation due to the bad weather. Peterson had insufficient experience and was not qualified to fly in instrument meteorological conditions. Aviation regulations and safety standards have improved significantly since the 1959 accident. Currently, there are much stricter international flight regulations and more stringent requirements for pilot certification, training, and instrument proficiency. These advances in aviation safety have contributed to a significant reduction in similar tragic events. Not everyone was satisfied with the findings of the Civil Aeronautics Board. Over the years, there have been ongoing discussions, evaluations, and calls to re-examine the matter. Some were looking for a more thorough investigation or a fresh look at the available evidence. Take as an example Jay Richardson, the Big Bopper's son, who had some questions. Big Bopper's body was found about 15 meters from the crashed plane, much farther away than the rest. In addition, a .22 caliber pistol belonging to Buddy Holly was also found near the crash site. This discovery raised questions and led to rumors about the circumstances of the crash. Jay hired Dr. Bill Bass to examine his father's remains. Dr. Bill Bass is a well-known forensic anthropologist and founder of the research facility at the University of Tennessee known as the Body Farm. He gained fame for his work in forensic anthropology, particularly studying human decomposition to aid in criminal investigations. This investigation was conducted in 2007, 48 years after the plane crash, with the goal of understanding the circumstances of the Big Bopper's passing. Dr. Bass performed an autopsy on the Big Bopper's remains, examined bones and forensic evidence to determine the cause of death and dispel any questions or theories of foul play. "I'm going to show you what I saw," Bass said, "but I'm not going to tell you the answers to those two questions." The Big Bopper's body was still in remarkably good condition after the crash. His haircut was untouched, and his facial features were clearly visible. J.P. Richardson was born just 2 months after the accident and discovered that he had never seen his father in 3 dimensions. 4 X-rays of the body had been taken, showing that the Big Bopper had numerous fractures ranging from his skull to his legs. Given the severity of these injuries, summoning help would not have been feasible. Moreover, if the Big Bopper had been shot, traces of lead would have been left on his bones, which was not the case. His findings confirmed that the Big Bopper was instantly passed away. Further, there were claims and speculation that a gun went off in the plane during the flight, possibly leading to the crash. Since there was no concrete evidence to support this theory, this claim was eventually dismissed. In 2015, retired pilot L.J. Kuhn tried to clear the deceased pilot's name by suggesting that the plane may have had a fuel system malfunction that could have led to a possible crash. Again, there was no substantial evidence to support this claim. Therefore, authorities decided not to reopen the investigation. Despite the fact that the plane had not been discovered until the next morning, journalists quickly reported the tragic incident to the rest of the world. The loss of these iconic musicians deeply affected not only their families, but also the entire world. The way Buddy Holly's family first heard about the tragedy through local news reports made the situation even more heartbreaking. On February 7, 1959, Holly's funeral was held at the Tabernacle Church in his hometown of Lubbock. His body was buried in the town cemetery, and the entire funeral was held in private. His tombstone reads, "In loving memory of our own Buddy Holly." You'll notice that the grave includes the E in the Holly, representing the singer's birth name. Next to these words, there's a guitar engraved. Buddy's wife, Maria ELENA Holly, was unfortunately unable to attend his funeral. She had miscarried, probably due to the psychological stress she was experiencing after her husband's tragic loss. The Winter Dance Party tour continued after the tragic plane crash, but was marked by a heavy and somber atmosphere due to the loss of iconic musicians. Waylon Jennings, who was originally supposed to be on the plane but gave up his seat, assumed the role of lead singer during the tour. He performed in memory of Buddy Holly and tried to honor his late friend as best he could. Jennings played an important role in keeping the tour going, despite the deep sadness involved. Thankfully, Buddy Holly's music has continued to live on in so many ways in the decades since his passing. After the tragic accident, a tape was discovered in his apartment containing 13 new recordings, previously unheard by the public. Some of these recordings were still released. One of the most notable songs was a sequel to his hit Peggy Sue, titled Peggy Sue Got Married. This song contributed to Buddy Holly's musical legacy and remains an important part of his discography. Besides, Buddy's style has forever had an impact on pop and rock music. It was his band that popularized the lineup of two guitars, a bassist and a drummer. It was his band that pioneered new studio techniques, such as double tracks. Buddy's music had a profound and lasting influence on musicians around the world, through all generations and cultures. For example, he was a major influence on popular music artists such as Bob Dylan, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Eric Clapton, the Hollies, and Elvis Costello. Bob Dylan, a Nobel laureate, spoke openly during his speech about the influence Buddy had on his music. He said, "If I was to go back to the dawning of it all, I guess I'd have to start with Buddy Holly. Buddy died when I was about 18 and he was 22. From the moment I first heard him, I felt akin. I felt related, like he was an older brother. I even thought I resembled him. Buddy played the music that I loved, the music I grew up on, country western, rock and roll, and rhythm and blues." During the Beatles' career, they paid tribute to Holly's legacy and how he inspired them to play. For example, Paul McCartney once said the following in an interview: "Buddy Holly was completely different. He was out of Nashville, so that introduced us to the country music scene. I still like Buddy's vocal style and his writing. One of the main things about the Beatles is that we started out writing our own material. People these days take it for granted that you do, but nobody used to then. John and I started to write because of Buddy Holly. It was like, wow, he writes and is a musician." Another legendary musician, Elton John, admitted that he owed just about everything to Buddy Holly, saying, "I began wearing glasses when I was 13 to copy Buddy Holly. After 18 months, I found I couldn't see without them. If any young fans are thinking of copying me, I'd advise them to forget it." Ultimately, all of this shows how influential Buddy Holly was. He helped inspire multiple generations of music and completely changed the way the music industry functioned. And he was only 22 years old. Imagine what he could have done if he hadn't gotten on that plane. To continue to remember Buddy, several monuments and memorials were built. There is a memorial at the field in Iowa where the plane crashed. The memorial is relatively small and contains symbolic objects representing each of the musicians. It consists of glasses representing Buddy Holly, a guitar representing Ritchie Valens, and a trio of records for the Big Bopper. There is also a statue of Buddy in his birth street on 19th Street in Lubbock, Texas. He holds his guitar and, of course, has his familiar glasses on. Near the statue of Buddy in Lubbock, there's the West Texas Walk of Fame. He was inducted into this Walk of Fame in 1979, making him the first person to receive this honor. Over the years, numerous artists have commemorated Buddy Holly in various songs. The album Not Fade Away is a notable tribute, where various artists come together to cover some of Holly's best songs. While tribute albums and songs have celebrated his music and influence, it is widely recognized that no one can truly match the unique talent and impact Buddy Holly had in his time. Don McLean paid tribute to the three musical legends in his 1972 hit, American Pie. The phrase, "the day the music died," comes from this song and beautifully captures the worldwide mourning for Buddy Holly and the other artists who tragically lost their lives. Hubert Jerry Dwyer, owner of the airport, was working on a book about the plane crash. Unfortunately, he passed away from Alzheimer's disease before it could be completed. Despite his death, publishers have plans to publish the material in the future. The book would provide valuable insight into the circumstances of the tragic accident that affected Dwyer throughout his life. At just 22 years old, the life of a musical wonder child and a pioneer in the music industry came to a tragic end. I'm sure there will still be questions about the plane crash. In any case, this day will forever be known as the day the music died. Thanks for watching this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on your notification bell to stay updated on more similar videos. We would love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share your comments below. Until next time.